Have you ever heard the saying house poor? That just means somebody has so much of their monthly income going towards house payment and associated house cost that they don't have much money to do many other things. Being house poor would prohibit you from making contributions to your brokerage account. And, that might be too tight for a lot of people. And so when you think about, hey, should I buy or should I rent? That's a personal decision, and you're going to have to figure out what works best for you. But how much to spend on the mortgage or the monthly rent? Certainly, we want to exercise some financial analysis to figure out what is going to give me the most flexibility currently and in the future.
You're listening to The Pilot's Portfolio, the show dedicated to guiding professional pilots towards a future of financial success and stability. Fly along with your host, Timothy P. Pope, as he provides financial planning insights and answers to your burning questions and dives into real-life stories from fellow pilots who share their successes and cautionary tales. The Pilot's Portfolio takes off now.
Welcome to this episode of Pilot's Portfolio, guys. This is the financial planning show where we talk about all things financial planning, investment related, all things personal finance and how it relates to you and your life as a professional pilot. My name is Timothy P. Pope. I am a certified financial planner and principal at 360 Aviation Advisors, where, as the name suggests, our focus is the professional pilot. I'm also a GA pilot, fly the mighty 172 and the Cirrus SR20. In today's episode, we are going to talk about how to focus on WIN. So WIN, that acronym stands for What's Important Now. I'm sure that you've heard that before. So let's talk about that as it relates in a financial planning concept. Now, before we do that, I do want to give a quick shout out to an airline that gave me a good laugh. So a few weeks ago in Charlotte, we had the CLT Runway 5K. I think these Runway 5Ks, I think they happen, different airports around the country. But at Charlotte Douglas, this race raised money for aviation education at one of the local community colleges. And if I'm nothing, I am consistent. I love aviation education. So in the summertime, we sponsor OBAP's ACE Academy, so Aviation Career Exploration for students 13 to 17. And with this opportunity to sponsor the race and raise money for the community college, I'm all about helping young people discover the aviation industry, helping them plug in, find their place, whether that's a pilot, a maintainer, dispatcher, aviation manager, whatever. It doesn't matter. If they love the game, I think that there's a spot for everybody to participate. And so we sponsored the race, and Charlotte shuts down a runway. The course actually picked you up runway 36 left, and then you circled back and you started to travel south down Taxiway Whiskey. And so it was a great time. A lot of people got out there super early. The buses started bussing people at like 5:40 in the morning. A couple thousand people were out there. They had a 777 that everybody ran underneath. It was a great time. As the race concluded, first place, got 100,000 miles from American Airlines. And then second place, I got a $1,000 gift card to fly on Delta. And, you waited around and kids were taking pictures and blah, 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 just hanging out. They had, a lot of things out there. And then the person that finished dead last in the race finally crossed the finish line, and the announcer comes on and is like, hey, everybody, we have to acknowledge, whatever that person's name was. And they said, you received a $500 gift card for being last from Frontier Airlines. And I remember, I'm walking across, going to take pictures with the kids, and I'm walking across and I hear that. And I'm like, why? Who would sponsor last place? Why in the world would you do that? And then I realized, I'm like, okay, you know what? Somebody at Frontier, they have a sense of humor. They can laugh at their expense a little bit. And you know what? It works because I'm talking about it. So shout out to Frontier for you guys cracked me up. And, I hope that person who finished last place, I hope they enjoyed their flight to wherever they're going. All right. So moving on. In other aviation financial news, there's some interesting things coming out of American Airlines for the pilots. The APA is releasing more information about your cash balance plan. And, I've been talking to my clients about it. And one of the unique and attractive things that you guys are going to have is it looks like you're going to have a choice of whether you participate in the cash balance plan. It looks like it's every 3 years, okay? It's pretty unique to you guys right now as cash balance plans go in the industry. United tried to put out a cash balance plan with an annual choice. That has not passed yet. So between the Delta, the American, and the Southwest plans, we should probably have a future conversation about the features between the three of them, because while the cash balance plan all serves similar purposes, which is deferring more of your taxable income and making it tax deferred until retirement, there are some different features between them. And I think that would be interesting to know what those features are. But the opportunity to have choice at American in that cash balance plan, every 3 years you can opt in and opt out, I think that is pretty stinking cool. Focusing on when. So what's important now? If you guys are like most pilots and most people, when you think about your financial goals, you have probably several of them that come up. Often the challenge that we run into is like, okay, so what should I be working on right now to really move the ball forward? We think about saving for retirement, buying a new home or buying a second home. Is it time to getting into rental real estate or some other type of real estate investment, diversifying my investments beyond the market, sometimes increasing complexity, maybe getting into some illiquid things. So is it time for that? Maybe it's getting kids through college, or maybe it's paying off debt. What should I be working on? Because it seems, particularly you have a high income, high W-2 income, it seems like there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of goals that you want to solve for. And sometimes it can be challenging to figure out what you should focus on first. So when we think about this question, should I save for retirement while I have high interest debt? A lot of times I'm thinking about credit card debt. I don't even know what they are right now. 26%, 29% kind of thing. There could also be some high interest personal loans out there, loans with double digit interest rates on them. So should you be saving for retirement when you have that kind of debt? My answer is it's going to depend. I'm going to give you two scenarios with two different answers here. So let's say that you're at a regional carrier and the company is giving you a 401k match, meaning you have to put in 5%, of your salary, and then they're going to match you dollar for dollar up to 5%. In that case, when you put in $1, they give you $1. That's 100% return on the dollar that you put in. That's pretty attractive. So in that case, you have high interest debt, you will want to contribute up to your match of your 401k. And then after that, you're going to apply everything else to that high interest debt. And you're really going to focus on that, right? So if you got a 5% match in your 401k, could be regional, could be business aviation, whatever. You probably don't want to find yourself putting, say, 10% or 15% of your salary towards retirement while you still have this high interest debt that's sitting there, accruing interest, right? So that's one case. Go get your match, that free money, that 100% return, and then you'll focus on paying the debt down. But if you're at a major carrier, that's giving you 17% of your compensation in your 401k, and that's, by the way, without you putting $1 into your 401k. And in January, it's going up to 18%. So if you're at a major and they're giving you 17, 18% to your 401k, then in that case, you're not going to want to put anything into the 401k, and you're going to want to focus on that high interest, whether it's credit card debt, whether it's a personal loan. You focus on that high interest debt first. And then once that's paid down, then you'll come and you'll start to focus on your retirement savings and add to that. Because the money that you put in from your paycheck to, say, your 401k, let's say you're going to get a 100% stock portfolio. Let's say you're going to expect 10% return, okay? Well, at 10%, your high interest debt at 26% is 16% higher, right? And so that money is not doing its best work in that case. And you could think, well, hey, I need time in the market. Absolutely. You do need time in the market. And that's why we want to get the high interest debt paid off as quickly as we can, because the power of compounding works on both sides, right? The debt side and the equity side. So, that's one thing is, should I be saving for retirement while I have high interest debt? And the answer is, well, it depends. It depends on what kind of retirement incentives you have at the carrier, or if it's business aviation at the company that you work for.
Hey, pilot, are you looking to save 20% on the sale or purchase of your next home? Let me tell you about a friend of the show, Beacon Relocation. With Beacon's exclusive real estate benefit, you can save thousands. My family has actually used their services when we needed to sell a property that was multiple states away. Beacon has over 1,500 experienced agents providing outstanding service and expertise as they guide you through every step of the buying or selling process. They'll even connect you with a national lender who offers competitive rates and discounted programs. As a Pilot's Portfolio listener, you are eligible to receive 20% of the real estate agent's commission towards your closing cost on the sale or purchase of your home. Visit beaconrelocation.com today. Select Pilot's Portfolio via the Apply Now drop-down menu to activate your benefits and make your next move your best move.
Buyer credit varies in some states. Contact us for details.
The other question is, hey, should I buy a new home or should I be renting? And to be quite honest with you, I think the decision to buy or to rent is a pretty personal decision. And there are a lot of factors that can sway you in one area or the next. Maybe you moved to a new city, maybe you're moved in base and you want to rent, for a year and figure the place out before you make a commitment. Cool, right? No problem. Maybe you're that same person and you already know, right? You have friends in the city and you've done your due diligence and you're ready to make that commitment, right? No problem. I know folks that prefer a really low maintenance arrangement. They might rent or they might do a townhome or something like that. So I think there's a lot of personal decisions about should you rent or should you buy? If you decide to buy, how much home should you buy? I think that's a completely different conversation, and that one should be led by some financial analysis, right? It's very much has an impact on your current and your future financial success there. If you ever heard the saying house poor, and that just means somebody has so much of their monthly income going towards house payment and associated house cost that they don't have much money to do many other things. So you certainly want to avoid buying so much house that you can't save for something like, let's say, your retirement. And even though the airlines are giving you 17% NEC and soon to be 18%, depending on when you start. I mean, if you start pretty early and you have great faith that nothing's going to change or things going to stay the same over your career, you might pop down a really big mortgage that takes a lot of your paycheck. Wouldn't recommend it, but that might be something that somebody finds themselves doing. But let's say that you don't start early. And by the way, when I say early, I mean like 35 or earlier. Okay. Let's say you start, say, at 40. And by the way, you start the airlines at 40 and say maybe your retirement savings also needs getting started around 40, that kind of thing. Well, we can't rely on just the NEC. We are going to have to make contributions in addition to the NEC. And probably in addition to the 401k as well. So when you think about that, that's one case, we don't want to be house poor, so we can make contributions to our own retirement. Or, retirement aside, I tell folks all the time, right now, pilots do not have an income problem, which means that things are tilted in your favor where you can save abundantly for your future, but you can also enjoy the fruits of your labor now. And so when we think about that, typically we think about a brokerage account. Like, hey, maybe I'm saving in a brokerage account because right now I'm doing all the things that I'd like to do, but at some point I might find other interest and I might want to direct funds towards that. And so the brokerage account is that account where there's no strings attached and you can do just that. Being house poor would prohibit you from making contributions to your brokerage account. And, that might be too tight for a lot of people. And so when you think about, hey, should I buy or should I rent? That's a personal decision. And you're going to have to figure out what works best for you. But how much to spend on the mortgage or the monthly rent. Certainly, we want to exercise some financial analysis to figure out what is going to give me the most flexibility currently and in the future. Another question that we really run through a lot is, should I save for retirement or should I help pay for my kids' college? That's another one where what's important now? And it is just a widely known fact that college has gotten so expensive over the past 20 to 30 years. And it's really easy for kids now to have a six-figure price tag for their education. As parents, we want our children to do well, however we can help them. But sometimes this question comes up, and it could be for a number of reasons. It could be, hey, somebody got a late start on their retirement savings, and now it's time for the kids to go off to college. Should they scale back on retirement savings, or should they defer their own saving for retirement in order to help their kids go to school? The one thing that, if you could boil it all down and say, well, you know what? A lot of times the kids could take out a loan to go to school, but there's no retirement loan that you could take out. And if you are flying in the 121 world, hey, right now it's age 65 and then you're going to be done. Okay. And so maybe you can go find a gig somewhere else, but who knows, right? This is the aviation industry after all. Like, there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to command a high income doing that. And then the other thing is, every year that you guys rely on the medical. All right. So you'd hate to defer your own retirement savings in order to pay for school, and then something happens with the medical. Your loss of medical is great in the 121 world, but 50% of your salary may not, be what you need to save and hit your retirement goals. So when you think about that, the kids can take a loan for college, but you can't necessarily take a loan for retirement. Here's the other side of that coin, though. If you started saving early, or maybe there was an inheritance, or whatever. Life has so many twists and turns, but maybe you figure out that you're actually on track for retirement. Maybe you're ahead of track. Maybe you're above goal when it comes to your retirement savings. I think that would be worth knowing. So then when you have this question, should I save for my retirement or pay for my kids' college? Maybe you hadn't saved in a 529, up to this point. And so now you're saying, well, man, goodness, if you know that you're ahead of goal and you know by how much, then that can also influence your decision. Well, maybe you can throttle back on some of the retirement savings, cash flow some of the kids' school, and then once that's done, continue saving where else. I think that point there, it's valuable to know when you're on track for your retirement goal and maybe when you're overfunded in retirement. Understanding that, knowing what the risks are and what happens in different market conditions can give you a lot of freedom and flexibility to make some of these choices. So those are like three common things that we work through, and just, a few scenarios. I think, quite frankly, the decision matrix of life usually has so many more decisions and trade-offs that we're faced with every day. And a lot of them have the financial impacts. And we often have to decide which ones that we should really focus on first, because timing matters, right? Returns matter. Interest that you pay, interest that you earn matters. Time in the market certainly matters. And the nice thing about financial planning is, you can lay out all the financial goals there. And then sometimes the ones that you absolutely must get started on will just jump right off the page at you. And then you could that's where you start. But then other times you're going to figure out, hey, I have more discretion here. I have more choice, and you can understand what those trade-offs are and what they mean for you, and then pursue them accordingly. So with this episode, focusing on what's important now, I think it all ties back to your financial plan. And then that's going to help inform you of which opportunities, whether investment related or just life enhancing opportunities, that you take advantage of, and then which goals you also focus on first. So with that, that's going to do it for this episode of Pilot's Portfolio. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you for joining this episode of Pilot's Portfolio. If you found this information helpful, spread the word and share it with a Pilot buddy. Or if you have questions and there's something that you would like to hear discussed on the show, send us an email. You can find the address in the show notes. For those of you who are ready to learn how we help professional pilots with their financial planning needs, schedule an appointment. Until next time, keep the shiny side up, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Pilot's Portfolio is hosted by Timothy P. Pope. Timothy P. Pope is principal owner of 360 Aviation Advisors. 360 Aviation Advisors is a registered investment advisory firm regulated by the state of North Carolina in accordance and compliance to the securities laws and regulations. 360 Aviation Advisors does not render or offer to render personalized investment or tax advice through Pilot's Portfolio. The information provided is for informational purposes only and may not be suitable for all investors and does not constitute financial, tax, investment, or legal advice. All investments involve a degree of risk, including the risk of loss.